Hello friends, good afternoon and welcome to EduSat Live Lectures. Dear friends, in political science, today we will be talking about Dalits, social change and electoral politics in India. To discuss this topic, we have with us our subject expert, Professor M.P. Singh. Professor M.P. Singh does not need any introduction. He is an illuminary and an expert on Indian federalism. He was previously a professor at as Department of Political Science, Faculty of Social Sciences, Delhi University. Presently, he is editor of Indian Journal of Public Administration. Without further ado, I would like to welcome Sir to our studios and request him to start the lecture. Welcome, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, Amritpal. The topic is already announced, and I will begin with the nomenclature of the term Dalits or scheduled castes. Now, the official term today is scheduled castes, and it is referred to the former untouchables, and during the British Raj, they were called depressed classes. They were parts of the depressed classes in British India, and since the Government of India Act 1935, these communities came to be called scheduled castes for the reason that they were scheduled in the Government of India Act 1935 in the first schedule for the purpose of giving representation to scheduled castes in electoral process in the legislative councils of the period. And the term has continued in independent India. The Constitution of India has also continued the same nomenclature. The Hindi term Dalit has now been increasingly preferred by Dalits themselves, scheduled castes themselves, and the meaning of this term is the downtrodden, and their self-image is that they are downtrodden and they need a special protection under the Constitution and the laws of the country, which they have been accorded. Now, the Constitution Scheduled Castes Order 1950, issued by the President of India, lists 1108 castes across the 29 states and 7 union territories as the scheduled castes. Now, let us have a look at the demographics. Scheduled castes comprise 16.6% of India's population in 2011 census. Scheduled castes are distributed across various religions as follows. 22.2% of scheduled castes are Hindus, 30.7% of them are Sikhs, 89.5% of them are Christians, and 0.8% are Muslims, and others account for 2.6%. So, the communities called scheduled castes are distributed across various religions of the country, although popularly they are mostly known as Hindus, but in fact scheduled castes among Sikhs and Christians are larger than the scheduled castes in the Hindu communities. Now, a look at the representation or presence of scheduled castes across the states and union territories of the country. Top 5 states, I give here data about the top 5 states with largest representation of scheduled castes. Punjab has 31.9% of scheduled castes. We are talking about intra-state population, intra-state, not interstate, intra-state. So Punjab has 31.9% of its population enumerated as scheduled castes. Himachal Pradesh 25.2%, West Bengal 23.5%, Uttar Pradesh 20.7%, Haryana 20.2%. And bottom 5 states and union territories are mostly, practically all, not all, are mostly states and union territories in the northeast, where their presence is very marginal, either less than 1% or less than 2%, less than 2% or less than 1% in various states of the northeast and Goa. Outside the northeast, Goa has only 1.7% of scheduled castes. So these are areas of negligible presence of scheduled castes. Now, we have so far talked about intra-state population of scheduled castes. Now, let us have a look at interstate, inter-se or interstate presence of scheduled castes, compared one state compared to another. Uttar Pradesh has the largest proportion of scheduled caste population in interstate terms, 20.5%, West Bengal 10.7%, Bihar 8.2%, Tamil Nadu 7.7%, Andhra Pradesh 6.9%, and so on. Now, this demographics that we have just discussed raise some puzzles or questions. What are the puzzles? Now, the puzzles are that scheduled castes are reasonably widely distributed across various states and union territories, and they are present in various religious communities of the country. Why is there not an all India scheduled caste party? Because their population is quite widespread, and in terms of all India party, we don't find any in the real sense of the term. Because scheduled caste party, the most important scheduled caste party, is largely restricted to one state of the union, UP. Now, there have been attempts to establish scheduled castes parties right from the time of the British Raj. During the British Raj, Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, the leader of scheduled caste, in fact, he is an all India leader as well, but since he came from the scheduled caste communities, he tried to speak for them, tried to represent their cause, and he was, as is quite well known, one of the architects of the Constitution of India as the chairman of the drafting committee. Dr. Ambedkar established a party called Scheduled Castes Federation as early as 1942 in Nagpur, and he later changed the name of the party to Republican Party, and the Republican Party of India is marginally present in only Maharashtra. None of these parties founded by Dr. Ambedkar, either Scheduled Castes Federation or the Republican Party of India, could become an all India party, or even it could not even become a state party in Maharashtra from where Dr. Ambedkar hailed. Now, so this is one puzzle that confronts us. Another puzzle is that there are states which have larger presence of scheduled castes than UP. We have noticed in the previous tables that Punjab, Himachal Pradesh and West Bengal have larger presence of scheduled castes than UP. But we don't find a scheduled caste party in these states, Punjab, Himachal Pradesh and West Bengal, which have larger scheduled caste population than UP. Only UP has got a political party called BSP, Bahujan Samaj Party, to reckon with, to count among important parties of the state. So this is another puzzle, and and the extension of the same puzzle, the one that we just mentioned. Why is scheduled caste? Why is a scheduled caste party prominent only in UP? Why is it not important in Bihar politics next door? UP and Bihar have many similarities in terms of political temperament, in terms of political orientation, but there is no scheduled caste party in Bihar. So these are some questions that easily come to our mind when we look at the demographics that we just discussed. Now, we will come back to this question later. Let us first outline, discuss three models of Dalit or scheduled castes leadership and political mobilization in the country. We can delineate, if we look back, if we have a look at the patterns of politics among the scheduled castes in the country, we can identify three models of SC political mobilization and leadership. The first model is what may be called the Congress model or the Jagjivan Ram model. Jagjivan Ram was a scheduled castes leader in the Nehru cabinet and the Indira Gandhi cabinet, a very prominent national leader. So the first model we are calling is the Congress or the Jagjivan Ram model. What are the models of, what are the features of this model? Now this model is featured by patron-client relationship, that is the rise of scheduled castes in politics was as junior partners, as lieutenants or lieutenants to upper caste leaders. So following into the footsteps of the upper caste leaders, scheduled castes rose in politics, joined politics as clients to the patrons who belong to the upper castes. Patron-client relationship is an anthropological concept and is quite well known among social scientists. So patron-client pattern of mobilization characterizes the Congress or the Jagjivan Ram model. This model is also convergent with Gandhi's approach to Harijans and constructive politics and Achutodhar. So this is the first model. The second model of the rise of scheduled castes in politics may be called the Ambedkar model, after Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, the most prominent scheduled caste leader of Maharashtra and India, but I must add that he is also a national leader of great stature, not only a leader of the scheduled castes. Now, what are the features of this model? Now, this model is marked by more radical political assertion, more radical political demands, more radical political assertion of rights, emphasis on constitutionalism and law, Dr. Ambedkar also advocated a state socialism, which meant that land should be nationalized. All the land in India, all the farms in India should be nationalized, and the state should control farming. The state farms should be adopted. Dr. Ambedkar was a very far-sighted leader, and he realized that the distribution of land in India is such that there is a scarcity of land, and even if with radical land reforms, there may not ultimately be enough land to distribute. And therefore, he was very far-sighted, and he calculated and he advocated that if scheduled castes, the landless communities of India, if they are to get any land, they can benefit only by state socialism in farming. A state should nationalize all farms and manage state farming collectively, the kind of collective farming that Soviet Union had practiced at one time. So, this model is also featured by some cultural content in terms of Dalit literature. Dalit literature is a phenomenon that emerged among scheduled caste writers and poets in Marathi, and the spillover effect in other languages of India is also evident. But Dalit literature and Dalit poetry first started in Maharashtra, and I find its representation in Hindi literature as well, and I presume that it has influenced literature in other Indian languages as well. So, this is the second model of scheduled castes mobilization and political leadership. The third model I have called the Kansiram Mayavati model. The Kansiram Mayavati model is a combination of the two previous models that we discussed, but it is mostly influenced by the Ambedkar model, but there is also a trace of the first model in it, but it becomes a third model independent in itself because it has some new features. The new features, the one new feature that I notice is, for example, that the Kansiram Mayavati model has invoked Jyoti Rao Phule, the Maharashtrian backward caste social mobilizer, Mahatma Jyoti Rao Phule, and his concept Bahujan. The Bahujan term, in fact, was first coined by Mahatma Jyoti Rao Phule, who was himself belonged to a backward community, a Mali or gardener community. And the Kansiram Mayavati model has incorporated the ideas and symbols of Phule as well as Ambedkar. So, and there is a great deal of assertion of identity, radical assertion of identity in Kansiram Mayavati model. There is virulent anti-Brahmanical temper. There is a virulent, derisive attack on Manuvadi ideology or Manuvadi communities and Manuvadi parties, which means Manuvadi Brahmanism. So they are against it, and in early days of their rise to politics, the leaders of this model used slogans like "Tilak Taraju aur Talwar, inko maro jute char." Although this slogan is later abandoned by a shift from Bahujan to Sarvajan under the leadership of Mayawati in Uttar Pradesh when she rose to power and became the chief minister of the state on the basis of a single party majority, Bahujan Samaj Party majority. For the first time, she became the chief minister who completed the full term. Earlier, she had become chief minister with support of other parties, but could not complete her full term. Earlier, she formed coalition governments in alliance with Samajwadi Party and later Bharatiya Janata Party. But in 2007, she came to power on the exclusive majority of Bahujan Samaj Party when the Brahmins en bloc supported the BSP and the new slogan or new orientation of the Bahujan Samaj Party shifted from emphasis on Bahujan to Sarvajan, from one group to all groups. So shift from Bahujan to Sarvajan was the product of the period when the BSP became the ruling party of UP in 2007 on its exclusive majority without any coalition forming. Now, let us look at reservation policies for scheduled castes and emergence of a scheduled caste reservation aristocracy or a middle class among the scheduled castes. The phenomenon of emergence of a middle class among the landless and poor scheduled castes is a product of the policy of reservation, and therefore reservation policy is of great importance in the analysis of the sociology and politics of scheduled castes in India. Reservation for scheduled castes in the Constitution and laws of India are found in three matters: in education, in employment or services, and in political representation. So reservation for them is there in education, in employment or jobs, and then in political representation from the panchayat to state assemblies to the national parliament. Now, this is a most comprehensive, perhaps the most comprehensive affirmative action policy in the world. And there are other countries who have adopted reservation policy or affirmative action policy, like for instance the United States of America and South Africa have also adopted a reservation policy, first adopted in India. But there is some difference between this policy in India and in the USA and in South Africa. In the USA, for example, the affirmative action programs are introduced by executive orders, not by law or constitution, not by a statute, not by congressional statutes or by constitution, but by executive action, executive direction, decision by the executive, the president and the governors, not by law or by constitution. That's one difference between our reservation policy and the American reservation policy. There are other differences. For example, the United States doesn't have fixed quotas for the blacks. They don't have fixed quotas for the blacks, only preferential policies, only some preference in education and employment, but not fixed quotas. And the Supreme Court of the United States has generally not countenanced, generally not supported the idea of quota. The Supreme Court is firmly against quotas, and but the educational, so in government we don't find much of kind of reservation that we have got in America. We have got in India, we don't find in America. But the educational institutions in the USA, educational administrators, both public and private, generally support preferential policies for the blacks. Post-apartheid Africa, South Africa, has also adopted affirmative action, and their affirmative action is largely premised on redress of grievances, educational excellence, equity of access and opportunity, diversity, and combating structural injustices. Advances made since democracy came to South Africa are notable, but there are also limitations, as we also have limitations, which we would be discussing later in the lecture. Now, let us have a look at the implementation of the Indian reservation policy in some areas. Now, reservation is fully implemented in only one area. Reservation is fully implemented in representation or in elections to the panchayats, municipal councils, to the state assemblies, and to the national parliament. So, full quotas are entirely filled in political representation, in the field of political representation. But the quotas in education and employment have vacancies or backlogs, and they are not up to the point intended in law, that is proportionate to their population. So, I will give some data. Complete data is not possible in all the various fields in this lecture, but for sample, let me give some data about the representation of the scheduled castes in the Indian Administrative Service, IAS, the top service cadre in the country. Total employees in the IAS in the I'm giving data as on 1st of January 2011 as given by the government to the parliament. Total employees in the IAS cadre are 76,114. In this total cadre, scheduled castes representation is 12.27%, scheduled tribes representation is 5.35%. 5.35%. So, around 12% and 5% of scheduled castes and scheduled tribes are represented in the IAS cadres. This is less than their proportion in the population. This is less than their proportion in the population, both for SCs and STs. Now, there is some breakup of the data in terms of various levels of officers. We have data here regarding deputy secretaries, directors, joint secretaries, additional secretaries, secretary at the top. The total in all officers in this table is 361 in the government of India, 361. Out of this total 361, 6.91% are scheduled castes officers and 4.09% are scheduled tribes officers. And if you look at the table closely, you will find that the presence of the scheduled castes has a middling tendency, in the sense that they are almost absent at the lowest level and relatively absent at the top level, and the large concentration is at the middle level. It means that at the lowest level there is quick promotion and they join the middle level. But when they come to the middle level, promotion to the highest level, to the level of secretary, is slower. So there is a middling pattern, in the sense that there is relative absence at the top level, great concentration at the middle level, and at the lowest level, in this table at least, there is none. So they quickly move up, but to the middle level generally. Now, there is a landmark study by Mark Galanter, which we would be discussing. I stop at this level in this part of the lecture, and in the second part I would continue with some other themes that we have to discuss. We would be discussing a landmark study relating to reservation policy in India. This study is by Mark Galanter, an American social scientist, whose book Competing Equalities, Law and the Backward Classes in India, published by Oxford University Press, 1984. It's somewhat dated, but still a very important landmark study which should not be missed. Now, Galanter has made the observation, significant observation, that the reservation policy has shown substantial redistributive effects in access to education and job in India. These opportunities have become widespread in caste spectrum than earlier. The kind of opportunities that the reservation policy have offered and have materialized was unimaginable without the reservation policy. So the reservation policy had made a great impact in terms of distributive justice in the highly hierarchical and inegalitarian social structure of India. Moreover, another point that Galanter makes is that in the reservation policy, the effect that has emerged shows that the more resourceful or more numerous or those those scheduled castes communities who were politically awakened earlier, those who woke up in politics earlier, those who are somewhat resourceful, and those who are more numerous within the category of scheduled castes, they have become more benefited than other scheduled castes So, within the scheduled castes communities, some castes have benefited more than others. Upper crust of the scheduled castes have risen more rapidly and benefited more substantially than the lower categories of scheduled castes further down. This has created a class disparity among the scheduled castes, a class disparity, a class difference, a class disparity within the scheduled castes communities themselves. Nevertheless, on the balance, Galanter concludes that the reservations have accelerated the growth of a middle class and SC/ST members have been brought into central roles, significant roles considered unimaginable a few decades back. So, the independent study of this scholar, has concluded in very promising term in terms of the success and impact of the reservation policy in the country. Now, as we had promised that we would come back to the puzzles that we had posed in the first part of the lecture. Here I refer to the BSP phenomenon in UP. Why the BSP has made such a great impact in UP, although in the elections, assembly elections just held, the BSP has suffered drubbing or beating for a second term in a consecutive way. In the previous two assembly elections, the BSP has not performed as well as it had in the 2007 elections and earlier elections in the 1990s. Now, we are trying to trace here the rise of the party like BSP, and we are tracing its history. Its history goes back to 1971 when Kansiram, a Majbi Sikh serving in a scientific laboratory in Pune, he was an employee in the Explosive Research and Development Laboratory in Pune, and during his service there, he formed an association, a pressure group, which he called BAM Safe. BAM Safe means, the acronym BAM Safe means Backward and Minority Communities Employees Federation. The Backward and Minority Communities Employees Federation, BAM Safe, it was formed as a pressure group of union and state government employees led by Kansiram, who was serving in a Government of India laboratory in Pune. Now, on 6th December 1981, the BAM Safe was found in 1971. 10 years later, on 6th of December 1981, Kansiram took a qualitative leap by stepping into party political arena by launching the Dalit Shoshit Samaj Sangharsh Samiti. Dalit Shoshit Samaj Sangharsh Samiti, shortly called DS4, he formed it as a party now. So, from pressure group BAM Safe, the DS4 emerged as a political party, and it plunged into electoral politics, first in Haryana, in that a year later, and it was in that Haryana Assembly election that the sign-on slogan was first heard, Tilak Taraju aur Talwar, inko maro jute char. Tilak symbolizing Brahmins, Taraju symbolizing Baniyas, and Talwar symbolizing Kshatriyas or Rajputs. So there was a distinct radical anti-upper caste thrust in this politics. 3 years later, that is by 1984, Kansiram accomplished the level of political mobilization that witnessed the transformation of DS4 into the Bahujan Samaj Party, which became an important party in UP and in some ways in the country. This is a development of the 1990s generally. So, a party formed in 1984 actually made a great impact by the 1990s. Now in election after election, the mobilization was kept on, and it resulted in the emergence of a politically competitive Bahujan Samaj Party in UP politics. Now, it may surprise us how and why it was possible. One possible clue to the rise to political power of BSP in UP could be that among the Dalit communities or scheduled castes in UP, the Jataps or Chamars, they are contiguous community of cobblers. Jataps and Chamars alone constitute 57% of the total SC population in UP. So this substantial block of scheduled castes community became the lever of political power, became the basis of political power of BSP in UP. The second most populous SC caste in UP is that of the Parsis. Parsis or toddy tappers, Parsis, account for 16% of the Dalit population of the state of UP. Now, in later 1990s, as I was mentioning earlier, Mayawati formed two governments in post-poll alliances with Samajwadi Party at one time and at another time in alliance with BJP. Both the governments turned out to be short-lived. They could not complete their full terms because of the tensions in the alliance. And in the third election, it forged a pre-poll alliance with the Congress. But the alliance lost the elections. Yet, at the end of the elections, the BJP offered olive branch, or BJP offered proposal of an alliance to the BSP, and in alliance with BJP, the BSP formed a government in UP. But the most important date or the most important election turned out to be the 2007 assembly elections in UP, when the BSP got a single party majority government on the basis of, on the platform of Sarvajan Hitaye, Bahujan Hitaye, Sarvajan Hitaye, and this government completed its full term, and it is particularly remembered for improved law and order in UP. But this government was bedeviled by unbridled corruption and a spending spree on building memorials to Dalit icons and naming various institutions and big parks after Dalit saints and Dalit leaders, and it turned out to be a kind of a kind of a strong identity politics, asserting identity of Dalit symbols, as also a regression to neo-feudal mentality. Regression to a neo-feudal, it can be looked at in two terms: a strong assertion of identity politics, but it can also be seen, and it has been seen, as regression to a feudal mentality in terms of building monuments and parks like Mughals in Indian history. Now, in the next assembly elections in 2012, the BSP lost to the Samajwadi Party of Mulayam Singh Yadav and Akhilesh Yadav and the Yadav uncles. And in the 2014 Lok Sabha elections, led by Narendra Modi, the BSP could not win even a single Lok Sabha seat in UP. So that was a big shock. That was a big shock, and the BSP has not recovered from it yet. Though it could not win a single Lok Sabha seat in 2014, but its percentage of votes was still quite impressive, around 20%. So that means that 20% vote is quite substantial, yet it could not be converted into a single seat because of the vagaries of the first past the post electoral system that India follows. This plurality electoral system, or first past the post election system, creates an imbalance, dissonance or imbalance between percentage of votes and percentage of seats won, and all parties suffer from it at one time or another. Now, in 2017 assembly elections held very recently, just now, in 2017 assembly elections just held, BSP made no electoral alliances. It contested alone, but it fielded largest number of Muslim candidates in the electoral fray. It fielded 99 Muslim candidates, and perhaps the strategy was to compensate for the loss of Brahmin vote which shifted to the BJP in earlier elections. Mayawati tried to compensate it by roping in the Muslim vote bloc by fielding a very large number, nearly 100 Muslim candidates were fielded by the BSP. But this strategy could not bear fruits, and the BJP staged a tremendous electoral success in the just ended assembly elections in UP. So the BSP has now fallen on lean days. It is losing election after election, but as a political scientist, I can say that parties see ups and downs, and one cannot definitively write it off in UP politics, but it has suffered big electoral defeat in recent election. Why is the BSP confined only to UP? This question, is nagging us. This question is sort of, demanding answer time and again, and we have tried to, offer some explanations why it might be possible. Now, partly we have already explained it, and the three states that have larger scheduled caste population than UP, Punjab, West Bengal, and Himachal, this puzzle can be solved in terms of the fact that Punjab politics has been dominated mostly by Akali Dal with the support of Jat Sikh farmers, and the Congress. The two-party system, virtual two-party system in Punjab continues, and the larger Dalit population compared to other states, compared even to UP in Punjab, has not produced a scheduled caste party. So the dominance of the Akali Dal, based on Sikh identity, and the dominance of the Congress, the two parties alternately have been coming to power in Punjab. That explains why BSP phenomenon is not replicated in UP. In West Bengal, politics of the state is dominated by left ideology, earlier left ideology that ruled for 34 long years, led by the CPM, and now is a left of the center power has emerged in form of the Trinamool Congress led by Mamata Banerjee, and that explains why larger scheduled caste presence in West Bengal than UP has not been able to replicate the BSP phenomenon in that state. Himachal Pradesh is a sort of laid back state in the sense of absence of any large political or religious mobilization, and therefore the state is largely confined to a two-party system, featuring the Indian National Congress and the BJP, and the larger presence of scheduled castes than UP in Himachal has not been able to produce the phenomenon called the BSP that has made an impact in UP politics. So these are some puzzles and explanations that I found that need to be discussed while discussing Dalit politics in India. And the last point that I thought I could discuss is why BSP is not replicated in Bihar. Bihar is next to UP, and in terms of political orientation, the two states are more or less similar, yet why the BSP phenomenon has not spread to Bihar next door. Now, if you look at the demography of Bihar, backward castes constitute 25% of the population of the state. Bhumihar Brahmins accounting for 6%, Brahmins accounting for 7%, Rajputs for 9%, Kayasthas for 3%. Now, the upper backward caste, the forward castes constitute 25%. Other backward castes or OBCs 42%, and the breakup is Yadavs 13%, Kurmis 3%, Koiris 4%. These are upper OBCs. Among lower OBCs, Kushwahas and Telis they account for 2%. Now, scheduled castes or Dalits, scheduled castes, account for 16% of the population of the state, and Dalits or the Chamars, by and large, account for 6%. Paswans or Dusads or Pasis account for 4%. Mahadalits 10%, lower Dalits, and the upper Dalits and lower Dalits are fragmented, and beginning with the Nitish Kumar rise to power in 2005, there has been a kind of cleavage, a kind of gulf between the upper Dalits and lower Dalits, and so the whole picture that we have presented about social composition of the state of Bihar is more fragmented than the demography of UP. And demography of UP is less fragmented than Bihar, and that is the reason why UP has less of a fragmented party system, and the rise of the Dalits could be possible there because of the larger proportion of population of Dalits and consolidation among Dalits, such that the Chamars and Jatavs constitute 57% in block. So, and Bihar demography is quite fragmented. Upper castes are also fragmented, middle castes are also fragmented. Dalits and Mahadalits are also fragmented. So that is the reason why the BSB phenomenon could not be replicated in the state of Bihar.
Dear friends, due to paucity of time, we have to stop our lecture here. On that note, we would like to thank Professor Singh for coming to our show and delivering this wonderful lecture. And thank you, dear friends, for watching our show. Stay tuned and keep watching. Thank you.